when we talk about Sharia law, it's very important to step back and ask ourselves what this means. Okay. The Sharia is, in general, the idea of God's law. Okay. There is no book of Sharia. There is no code of Sharia. There are specific schools of Islamic law that attempt to understand Sharia, to attempt to codify it in a certain way. There are many different schools that disagree with one another. It's interesting when you mention the word Sharia to, let's say, someone in the United States, an American, a typical American, you know, what are they going to say? People getting their hands chopped off, people getting stoned. I mean, the type of, by rocks, not the other kind of stone. People being, you know, killed by stoning, you know, people, women covered up, et cetera, et cetera. These are all, for Americans, extremely negative images, extremely negative images. If you go to a typical, let's say, man or woman on the street in Egypt, and you say the word Sharia to them, what the polls show is that over 90% of people in Egypt associate the word Sharia with very positive notions, things like political justice, social justice, gender justice. So you see right away that there's a completely different, basic, immediate, emotional response to the word Sharia. Now, I think it would be useful for people in the United States to understand this, because what happens when Americans hear that, let's say one time the head of the transitional government in Libya said, we're going to have our Sharia be a main part of our law in the new Libya. And Americans immediately start panicking. Oh my gosh, hands being cut off, stoning. Oh, what's going to happen in Egypt or in Libya? What have we done? What have we done in aiding these rebels? But what you have to remember is that's not what this government official is thinking. And that's not what the people to whom he's speaking are feeling when he says the word Sharia. What they're thinking about is justice, cultural authenticity, a destiny that we make for ourselves, not one imposed from the outside, Muslims allowed to understand their religion and whose values are respected. But like I said, gender justice, political justice, social justice. So I think Americans need to realize that Sharia for other people means something very different than it does for them. They also need to understand that the word Sharia is very much like the word Constitution in the United States. So in the United States, you watch a presidential debate and a candidate gets up and says, we need to go back to the Constitution. The Constitution says this, and the Founding Fathers say that. And all the people in the audience are immediately overwhelmed by these waves of patriotism and affection for the Founding Fathers and commitment to the Constitution and its ideals. Of course, that means absolutely nothing, right? This presidential candidate might never implement any law that supports the Constitution or might even implement laws that are against the Constitution. This idea, this emotion that the presidential candidate is bringing up in the people's hearts is precisely that. It's an emotion. It's an idea. And it's an idea that is never necessarily going to be implemented in reality. I mean, certainly one of the things that comes up in people's minds, both inside Muslim countries and in Western countries, is the way that Sharia law envisions the role of women in society and the rights that women have in society. Again, I would really say that it's important to distinguish between the idea of Sharia and the fact that it's brought up by a politician or a political party, and what that actually means or would ever mean in reality.